Wow, isn't that spectacular? The kaleidoscope of lights you get to see when you fly at night? Well, some of those lights in this impressive scene have a special meaning for pilots because they are on airplanes or airports. The colors, field of view, arrangement, they are all used to take place of something you never even have to think about during daylight. And that's the ability to instantly recognize familiar objects and see their orientation. At first, what you see may seem like a meaningless jumble of lights, but as you gain night experience, those lights quickly fall into place and give you almost as much information as you would have during daylight. Let's take a look at what you can learn from these lights, starting with the big picture first, the lights on the ground. And of course, we're primarily interested in those you find at an airport. The most easily recognizable airport light is the rotating beacon. A rotating beacon is a light that sits on top of a tall tower or other high structure and rotates, what a surprise, narrow light beams around the horizon. The beams are aimed about 1 degree to 10 degrees above the horizon, but they can be seen well above and below those angles. It's set there so they don't shine right on you while you're on the ground. You'll see alternating white and green lights from the rotating beacon at most airports. And that combination, alternating white and green, means you found a lighted civilian airport. But what are the other light combinations, you ask? Well, you might, for example, see a green light with what the FAA refers to as a dual-peaked white flash. That would be green, white, white, green, white, white. Now, if you see that, what have you found? Good guess, but no, it's not two polar bears fighting over a dollar bill. That beacon tells you that it's a military airfield, and if you land there without prior arrangements, you'll have a lot of explaining to do. Now, another combination of lights you could see is alternating white and yellow lights. And if you try to land there, you had better hope that you're flying a seaplane, because what you found is a lighted water airport. If you see three colored flashes, white, yellow, green, that's a lighted heliport, and you better have a very short-field airplane. And finally, although it's very rare, you might see a white light, then when the beacon rotates, you see a white light again. And that means that you have a land airport with a rotating beacon, but no runway lights. Other types of lighting are used to let you know where obstructions and hazards are. If you see stationary red lights, red beacons, or high-intensity white strobes, you have an obstruction on the ground, such as a tower, antenna, or building. Stay well clear of these hazards, because there may be guy wires that are invisible at night. And check your altitude. Make sure that you're where you had planned to be. Now, let's take a look at the lights you'll see as you're landing on a runway at night. First, there are these green runway threshold lights to tell you that you've arrived at the runway threshold. Don't touch down before these green lights. Next come the white lights spaced along the edge of the runway, and they show you where your wheels should be rolling and conversely where your wheels should not be rolling. Now, along the last 2,000 feet of an instrument runway, or the second half, whichever is less, you may see yellow runway lights which run along the edges again and warn you that you are running out of runway. Your final notice that you've run out of runway is the lights at the end, and they are red. If you pass them, you'll see no further runway lights, and your wheels will be rolling in the dirt. Now, there are other lights, like approach lights leading up to the runway and runway centerline lights that you may see at more complex airports, but they build on the basics that we've discussed here. Taxiway edges may also be lighted like runways, except taxiway edge lights are blue. So if you're taxiing around an airport at night, taxi between the blue lights. It's much safer that way. Now, not all taxiways are lighted, so a landing or taxi light is a must because it can be really dark when you're taxiing on black asphalt at night. You will find a number of airports that have pilot-controlled lighting. You click your microphone on the designated frequency, usually the Common Traffic Advisory frequency, to activate those systems. Right here you see an L with an asterisk. That indicates pilot-controlled lighting. The sectional chart will indicate if pilot-controlled lighting is in effect at an airport, but it will not show the frequency if it's different from the CTAF. The Airport Facility Directory will list the frequency. The lights you can control include runway edge, approach if any, VASI, taxiway, and possibly other systems, and they can be controlled with a series of clicks within 5 seconds, and the lights will stay on for 15 minutes after the last activation. The exact levels will depend on the lighting system installed, but generally, the more clicks, the brighter the lights. 7 clicks gives you the highest intensity. 5 clicks could be medium or lower intensity, and 3 clicks for the lowest intensity. It's a good idea to wait until you are close to the airport before activating those lights. That way, you'll get the full benefit of 15 minutes and you won't be activating nearby systems on the same frequency. As we said earlier, for night flight, your airplane must have position and anti-collision lights and an adequate electrical system to power them. Now, you don't legally have to have a landing light unless you're flying for hire, but don't go without one. If it's burned out, get it replaced first. If you were flying an airplane that had fuses in the cockpit protecting the electrical system, you would have to carry a spare set of fuses, including 3 of each type used. But your new Skyhawk uses only push to reset or switch breaker type circuit breakers to protect the electrical system in the cockpit, so you don't need to carry fuses. The anti-collision lights on your Skyhawk include the flashing red beacon atop the vertical fin and the white strobes on each wingtip. Use the red beacon for all ground and flight operations. Turn it on before you start the engine and leave it on until after you shut the engine down. Save the strobes until just before taking the runway for takeoff, and shut them off when you're completely clear of the runway after landing so you don't blind your fellow pilots. So what do we mean by position lights? Well, those are the lights at the end of each wing and the tail so that someone can tell by looking at their light patterns the orientation or position of your airplane. Each light is a different color and has a specific pattern for where it can be seen. For instance, on the right wing, you have a green light. The tail has a white light, and the left wing has a red light. The red and green wingtip lights are blocked off so that you can't see them from the rear, and the white light on the tail can't be seen from the front. Now, it's a really good idea to remember which light color is on each wing. So when you see another airplane, you know right away which side you're looking at and which way it's going. Now, can you tell me, is the green light on the right or the left? Not sure? Well, here's a little trick some pilots use to remember where the lights are. First of all, the left side of the airplane, like a ship or boat, is the port side. And port wine is red. And so you have a red light on the left side. Just keep your 2 ports together and you've got it made. Well, that works for me, but you may have to come up with your own memory aid to keep it straight in your mind. Regardless of how you remember them, let's take a look at how knowing these lights can help you in the air. Let's say you're flying along and all you see is a red light on another aircraft. Which side of the airplane do you see? Well, you must be looking at the left side of that airplane because it's sporting a red light on its wingtip. Now, here you're flying along and all you see is a green light. Since it's green, you must be seeing the right side of that airplane. Now, suppose you see a steady white light and a flashing red light ahead of you and at the same altitude. What's that situation? Well, you're looking at the white position light on the tail and the red anti-collision light on top. Therefore, the other aircraft is flying away from you. Now, what would happen if you saw an aircraft with a red light on the right and a green light on the left? Let's see, red on the right, green on the left. Uh-oh, that could be big trouble, and you want to do something about it right now. Why? Because anytime you can see both wingtip position lights, it means that aircraft is coming at you. So now you know that some of those lights on the ground and on airplanes aren't just there to add to the great night flying scenery. They actually make it possible for you to fly safely when it's dark.